So here we are, folks. I thought of something last night, and that is I haven't shown you anything to do with riding the bike without the motor on, and obviously that has to be the big question for a lot of people anyway. So here we are. I've done 5.5 kilometres to get here. I have 9% of the battery for the bike left, and I didn't bother recharging after yesterday's ride. So I tend to like to run the battery down to out and then do a full charge. So how does it ride, you ask? Well, let's go back to the old Revolt I had. In the past, when I first got that, I did a lot of riding without the motor on. I'd head outbound and just use the motor for the steeper hills, and then turn the motor on for the run home, and then just have an absolute blast. And by run home, my longest ride in that situation was 157 kilometres, with the majority of that in the pine forest. Oh, I'm puffing more than I usually am. I guess that means the motor really is turned off. So, how does this one ride? Well, this bike, anecdotally, is lighter than the previous model, and when I took delivery of this with the pedals installed, because remember you buy these bikes without pedals and then you put your own preferred style, etc. on. So this came in at just over 19 kilos, which is a little bit lighter than the old bike. So how does it ride? Put simply, it's not too bad, except the 111 gearing does come up short on the steeper hills. It is clearly designed to have a motor assisting on the hills. Mind you, we're plodding along, slide uphill here at the moment, loosish gravel, not a lot of grip. Oh, the Maxxis receptor tyre on the rear, at a rough guess, I'd say it's nearly half worn, maybe slightly under that. And the bike has, when I left to start this ride, it had 1,218 kilometres on it. So I'm hoping to get around 3,000 kilometres out of the Maxxis receptor on the rear. The front one is still in mint condition, so that's what you would expect. Just referring back to the old bike with the crosscut Gravel 2 giant tyres on it, I achieved 12,000 kilometres on the front, and I'd consistently get 4.5 to 5 out of the back for a power bike. And anyone that's seen some of my videos, you know I do tend to torture the bikes and tyres. That doesn't mean I do not have mechanical empathy or sympathy, and it certainly doesn't mean I don't maintain the bikes. I do. It's too far for me to walk home if anything goes wrong, so I do make sure I look after the bikes as well as I can. And while I'm huffing and puffing and carrying on, I may as well mention, on the last bike I did come off a couple of times. I had a few very low speed dismounts, so as to speak, in the bush, but my biggest dismount was around 1 kilometre from home, where I misjudged a concrete path edge, and that basically broke 3 ribs and totally destroyed the helmet I was wearing, to the point that if I hadn't a helmet you wouldn't be watching this video. I am a strong believer in helmets. So here we are, we're on slightly softer sand. and I'll go up to a larger gear. I believe from memory I still have about 3 to go, and we're holding around 19-20 kilometres an hour, so that's not too shabby for an old man on a push bike. Oh, as for the broken ribs, 2 weeks after that, when I could breathe without sharp pain, I was back on the bike. I'm a stubborn old sod. There we are, 25-26 kilometres. We're now getting onto some drier, looser sand. Again, I'll go a little bit, dancing a little bit. Well, it's powering through quite well. Whoa. So we're still holding around 20-22 kilometres an hour. Okay, this is downhill. Now it's making it really good. I know it's rough. And you should have seen this track before they repaired it with all that rubble. Let's drop in here. Oh. Here we are, folks, coming down to the foreshore. Oh. Rightio. Oh, soft sand. So, again, we're still riding without the motor. Oh, another quick point of interest comparing this to the old bike, and that is with the previous E Plus Pro, whenever you had your motor assist turned off, the range would show up as 999 kilometres. For some reason on this bike, as soon as you're without your motor on, it gives you a very specific 255 kilometres. I have no idea why. It would be ludicrous to think they have worked out how much battery people are going to use by changing gears, because we all have different weights, riding styles, etc, etc. So where this comes from, I don't know. I have run the battery down in the past and deliberately ridden to see if that changed while I was riding without power, but it doesn't change, or it didn't for the period of time I was riding. Although talking to some people about the Di2s, they really don't use a lot of power, which then begs the question why Giant would allocate 7 to 8% of a 500 watt hour battery for gear changing. But I'm still getting good range, so don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. Oh, and if anyone watched the other video I had about add water, this is the same track but with out the water. So, summary, yeah, it rides okay without using the motor, but if you're going to go somewhere that's hilly, do save your battery or some part of your battery for the steeper hills, because the 111 gearing does come up short. Have a good one, folks. I'm going to turn the motor on. Just thought I'd add a little bit more. I didn't turn the motor on, I've just been plodding along playing tourist, looking for snakes as you do in Australia. And then I'm back to this little hill. I thought I might just record going up here, and while doing so mention cardio. I think that's the biggest mistake most people make about e-bikes, and that is they believe that you don't really get a workout. Well, let me put that one to rest. Last year on the other bike, I was out in the bush. I found a beautiful track underneath power lines that there was no way in the world I was going to get up, but I thought I'd have a go. Ended up having 3 goes, and silly me, I didn't bother having a rest in between. Later that night at home, I remembered the cardio, so I pulled it up, and sure enough the number that jumped was 200 beats a minute, and for an old fella, folks, that is not where it was meant to be. At the time of the ride I wasn't out of breath as I am now, because I'm still riding without a motor, but I also didn't have any discomfort or strangeness in the chest area, so I had no idea. Of course, now if I do multiple attempts, I actually stop and check my heart. So if you are on an e-bike, folks, please keep an eye on your cardio. It may be a lot higher than you imagine. And the huffs and puffs, and that'll do. Oh, what the hell, you can stay with me. I'm about to hit all the soft sand while I'm huffed and puffed. And even though I haven't used the motor, the battery has dropped down to 8% now. And the only thing it should be using would be the sending data from the sensors up to the GPS and the gear changes. I can't think of anything else in the system that it should be using power for. Oh, nothing like sitting in all the soft stuff. I've got good firm stuff off to either side. Clearly you don't need intelligence to ride a bike. Catch you around. Hey folks, still riding without using the motor. Yes, I am huffing and puffing. However, I've just come up a part of a hill and I got the cadence to over 140. And I'm an old man. Oh dear. Right, downhill. Let's talk about speed limiters. Or I'll put the brakes on so the wind doesn't get in the way of the audio. Speed limiters. In Australia, we have a limit of 25 kilometers per hour. However, these bikes, this and my previous Revolt E Plus Pro, what they do is they'll give you full power up to 25, and then from 25 to 27 it tapers down. Above 27 you're on your own. And equally, when you're coming down from a high speed, rather than slap you with full power at 25 kilometres an hour. What it'll do is it'll taper up from 27, so it's a smoother transition. Oh, here we go. Oh, while I'm here, let's see what I can do with the cadence. $141, $142. Oh, you gotta love jelly legs. Anyway, folks, catch you around.